This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry, I dropped the ball there, and we're recording at this point.
Okay.
I think it's Agricultural and Markets Law 234A.
234A. Okay, so I posted the wrong one.
It's not that one. That's wrong.
I posted one in the chat, which is
I think you're right. 305B.
305.
Okay, so that doesn't have a form or anything. So who fills this out? Is this Steve? Is this Mr. Jewett?
I think between Steve and Mr. Jewett, they can figure it out.
Okay. Mr. Jewett, I don't know. Do you see the chat link there?
The chat link?
Yeah, there's a little chat link that has a website post.
Yeah, it should be a message bubble in the upper right of the screen.
Oh, this?
Yeah, a little message bubble.
Yeah.
There's a link there. If you click on that, it brings you to the New York State legislation. And number 3 specifically states the content required in an agricultural data statement.
When I click on that bubble, it says connect audio, mute me, edit your name and email, turn off camera. Those are the only options I'm getting.
That might be
on my personal screen, correct?
Yeah, it might be the one to the left of that. If you hover over it, this says chat. Otherwise, we can always forward it to you through the building inspector later.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I just don't see any other options. I have one bubble with 3 little dots, and I'm the worst on the computer in history. So
quite all right. No worries.
This is quite a venture for me. My face popped up.
Should we then simply ask Steve to catch up with Dave?
Yeah.
And while he's at it, he may want to walk through the application requirements that are in 210-39.3.
Yeah.
31-3.
210-39.3.
39.3.
Right.
Can you just, what is this agricultural data statement? This is new, so I'm.
It's basically it's kind of under farming law. If you're doing something close to a farm, basically the point is we got to let the farmer know. That's basically all it is, and it's just a simple comment saying, "Hey, this is what." I think it's basically a form saying this is going on, and giving them an opportunity to comment on it if they want to. It's just a procedural thing. Since Powers was, it shouldn't be a very elaborate thing, other than we need to notify the farmer.
Okay, because I compete with them with Christmas trees. You know, they have their market on Marsh Road, so it makes me wonder: do they have an ability to throw to throw a wrench in this for me? Because
I think all we have to do is notify them, and if they want to make comments, all we are obliged to do is listen to them. I don't think we have to do more than that. So if it's a purely business thing, a sales thing, that's one matter. But if it would keep them from, say, growing corn, that would be something we'd listen to. But I don't think your Christmas tree sales in November is going to impact their corn growing operation.
No, not with an 8-foot fence between us. So
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to know. Thank you.
Good point.
And Mindy, with regards to that, if we're going to reference to Steve the 210-39.3, should we also reference where in the code it's requiring the agricultural data statement? Which I think is 178-23F.
1 sec. I just lost my notes.
178-2.3F.
Too many screens open at the same time.
Because that way we can just forward Steve that note. Justin, go
No,
ahead.
210-30E.
30.3E.
30.3E.
Okay.
-30. .3E under general application procedures.
Got it. Yep. Okay. So I think I was probably under a different review.
Yeah, I think you were looking at the site plan stuff, and this is in the regular zoning code.
Okay. Does it matter which one? Because they're submitting
Yes.
a site plan.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? If this were just a temporary permit application, it would, but since you got both and they're both requiring the same thing, it's like, it doesn't really matter. You
Okay,
just need to
great.
provide it.
And then who on our board wants to reach out to Steve? Justin, do you want to do that? Because you've reached out to him before?
Sure. Yeah, I can follow up and let them know about the additional requirements.
All right.
Okay.
I was
Anything
thinking-
else?
Yeah, I was also hoping he would give us an update as to, there are some outstanding issues with Corby's. So if there was any progress on that.
Are you talking-
Oh, go ahead.
No, I didn't know if that was pointed at me or not. That was,
No.
that was directed to, okay.
No, not you.
I had one basic conversation with Steve about this, and I know Steve brought this up at a trustee meeting where the general comment was that if there's an outstanding violation on the property, we can't accept an application. That was something in the code. However, I had a call with him and, I don't know, a month or so ago asking him about it. And he basically said he was unaware of any outstanding violations at the property. So, either the violation has been corrected or it was never formally issued or a violation notice. I don't know what the status of it is, but if it gets to us, then presumably it satisfied Steve. And I know he had a discussion with Jeff Turner and with the trustees about this very topic. So whatever was going on with it isn't under our purview. If it gets to us, then we should act on it. So if he sent it to us, he must be satisfied.
Good, great.
That is good. Yes, good news.
So, does anybody else have anything on this particular application, or do we have enough action items to move this forward after the meeting?
I think we can just make a motion. Well, first of all, we should probably open the public hearing and see if anyone has any comments. I don't think anyone is online, but I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on this.
Second.
How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I let the record show all 5 members voted to open the public hearing. So does anyone from the public want to comment on this application for Christmas tree sales? I don't think anyone's online.
At this point, I only see 8 participants who are members of the board and the applicant and the our secretary, attorney.
Okay, well, we heard from nobody, so I'll just make a motion to keep the public hearing open until our next regular meeting on Monday, October 21st. I believe that's the correct date.
19, I think.
Yep. Second.
So the correction of the motion is the date is the October 19th, Monday. So I guess all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Mr. Jewett, sorry for a couple stumbles here. We have plenty of time to get this resolved. I think the building inspector should be in contact with you in the next few days. We'll make sure we get all this buttoned up so that we can act on this on October 19th.
Sounds good, and I will, I'll stop by within a day or two and drop off that site plan.
Yeah,
Thank
so I
you.
think you need a site layout and there may be, oh, he already gave us a letter of an intent and other things. Is that correct? I saw that.
That's just an application.
Yeah, it was the standard application. But yeah, I can get you the Google Earth map and the layout.
And, okay,
Is there anything else?
Yeah, there are some other things that are set forth in, that's required by the zoning code that we talked about previously.
well, there's some application requirements in 21039.3, and we can let the building inspector work that out with you.
Right.
I guess-
Basically, it just says you need to state your hours of operation, how you plan to handle trash, and a few things like that. So you may, he can go through that list, and anything that you haven't submitted yet, he can just ask for it. So it might be just a couple other basic things.
Yep,
Right.
that's fine.
So I think I appreciate the early application again, Dave, and you know, I feel like this overall things are not going in the right direction with the code. You know, after 25 years, this should be getting easier, and instead we're adding requirements. So I think that also I'd like to, I don't know if we can just discuss it briefly now or put it on the agenda for later, but if we could put together a some kind of a memo to the trustees suggesting that this become more proceduralized and perhaps delegated to the building inspector going forward, so that you know, despite the fact that we like seeing Mr. Jewett at our meetings every year, maybe we can help save some time down the pipe.
Yeah, we had some discussion with the trustees back in the springtime, didn't we, about changing the temporary permits code to make some things easier? And I haven't heard anything from the trustees in a long time about that. So it sounds like we need to raise that up again.
Yeah, I think this is a great example and you know, an opportunity to push for some more streamlining.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that application is resolved then. Then the question is the next application, which is the other property along the canal, and we're doing a subdivision review to merge some parcels together.
Linda's got something.
Bye, I'm gonna cook off, so I just,
All right. Bye, Dave.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
yeah, see if I can figure this out.
Get him up.
How do I get out of here? How do I leave?
Well, I can help you. Let's see.
Turn off camera?
I could dismiss you if you'd like me to.
I can dismiss you.
Okay, I will. Have a nice night then. Thank you for coming.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Okay, our next issue is that the notice for the subdivision that was published only included one of the two properties. So it's really Joanne's fault because she's got to go studying all the papers and finding all these problems. So I spoke to Mr. Michaels about it, and he said that he would prefer to wait another month and have both properties dealt with at the same meeting. Is that, Mindy, what we would do? Because Dorothea
Well, you
suggested.
also need to renotice it.
I
So
did.
Okay, so you will, we'll open the meeting. We'll adjourn the part that was noticed, the 34, 36. You'll do a new notice that includes 34, 36, and 40.
Okay, so again, we're talking, we might as well have this whole meeting on the 19th.
Yes.
Because,
So I had a question about this application. So the map that I saw had two areas that were highlighted. Is it safe to assume that the applicant owns the lot in between them as well?
yes, he wants to merge that with his property, I believe.
So
Wait,
he
no.
owns the one in the middle and he
No.
wants,
Oh, no?
doesn't own the one in the middle?
He does
Well,
not.
we don't
as far as I
know that.
understand.
I don't know.
I can find out. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I guess the question, I don't quite know what is proposed here.
Oh, I see. I don't know.
So I look at this map and there's this yellow area at the top of it. And then there's these two 1.5-story buildings. And so I believe he's merging it with those. the top portion of it, presumably. So the land was acquired from the Canal Corp. So now he can comply with his setbacks and so on for the buildings.
He does not own that middle one, or at least according to the survey. Does anybody know a Ricardo Juskiewicz?
I've seen his name on the taxes.
Was that in Monroe County GIS, is it?
Yeah, he, let's see.
Oh,
Previously,
so he bought the Duncan Studio.
Hmm. That's what it is, yeah.
Oh,
He
That's
bought
that
the
building.
Duncan Studio, and that block behind it is part of that. Must be part of that.
That
Well,
parcel extends out to the canal, that's right.
that
Right.
parcel is the one with the oldest house in the village.
Right.
I'm not sure you can add non-adjacent parcels to each other.
He's
He's
not.
He's not.
So there's
So-
two. Yeah, so
So
there's
he must. So he
He's-
owns the other one on State Street. That is Lattimore Physical Therapy.
Right.
he owns Lattimore, and he's trying to connect the canal lot to Lattimore, and then at a different property, 34 and 36, trying to connect a piece of canal to that property. So there's two different connections going on. I
But
don't
they're
know.
not
if-
to each other.
They're not to
No.
each other.
Oh.
That's
that
why they
wasn't
have to
clear.
be
I was
noted
very-
Yeah.
separately.
I don't know if anybody can see this. This may or may not be easier to understand, but if you can see my cursor, this is the, what is it, 3436 on
Yep.
the west side here. This is the small parcel that's 0.05 acres that he's looking to combine to this parcel here. And that's got the two small houses on it that were recently expanded in an application from the HPB. And this parcel is the one with Duncan Studio, which is the oldest house and not owned by him. And then this is the other parcel at 40, I think it is, with another 0.05 acres by the canal being added to his existing property, which is Lattimore
Oh.
Physical Therapy.
And that's Lattimore.
These are our GIS tracks. Dave and I walked around and visited the site to understand what was going on here. This is the Google satellite image superimposed. This one, they actually do go to the canal, so the alignment with the map image is not totally correct, but you can see the shapes a little bit better. One thing that I noted is that I wonder if we need to consider these as two separate applications because there's a
They
different
are.
LLC that owns both properties. Okay,
oh dear.
so they're really two separate applications there.
And
Right.
And also that seems related. I was reading the subdivision code, and if we actually were merging something involving 4 properties, it would have to be a major subdivision.
Right, and you couldn't do it anyway because they're not adjacent.
Okay. Okay, so we've got 2 separate applications, and that's what's happening with them. My other question was just, do we need to do LWRP consistency review for this? Because that seemed to be something in the code.
yeah, that
Yes,
was
if
my
it's in
question.
an, if it's in a
Oh yeah,
local waterfront overlay district, then your
It
new
is.
code requires you to do it.
yeah, it does.
Well,
Okay, you
so
also-
is this a secret type 1 action, or
It
when we
is-
looked at these
That's
before?
the next thing on my list, yes. It's a secret type 1 action pursuant to 178-2.8B. You need local waterfront overlay review pursuant to 178-27. You'll need a 239N referral to the county. Under 178-25C, you'll need your agricultural data statement if it's within 500 feet of a farm operation in an ag district, and that's the 178-2.3F that David mentioned before. And then,
Could Steve have a list of these things to talk to Bob about? Because I think Bob thinks he's all set to go. You know, the applicant.
sure, I mean, I could send, how do you want to handle it? Do you want me to send him an email directly? Do you want me to send it to you guys to send to him? Do you want me to send it to Linda?
Can I ask a question? It'd be great, yeah, if you could send the requirements that you see. Why is it a type 1 action?
Because under 178-2.8B, let me just pull it up. 178.
Now, Mindy, last time we looked at this, we something like this, we found that it didn't meet the definition of action under 617.2 because
I
it was
think-
just changing lot lines and
Right.
no construction is proposed.
But the code changed, and I think the code now calls it 178-2.8. Okay, so 178-2.8
Oh, it just
B
straight up says it.
says that the subdivision of land shall be considered a type 1 action as provided for by seeker law. So this is what I would call a local type 1 action designation. Can you pull up the code there?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, 178-2.8 B. B as in boy.
And right above it, it states that the LWRP is required also.
Right.
So, so Mindy, I'm looking under 617.2 under actions. And
Right.
an action includes a project or physical activities such as construction or other activities that may affect the environment by changing the use, appearance, or condition of any natural resource or structure. So it
I
sounds
agree.
like we're effectively changing the use of property because it's being conveyed from the Canal Corporation.
No, the issue
No.
here is that it is not an action subject to seeker under the seeker regulations set forth in 6 NYCRR Part 617. But the Village of Pittsford zoning code says that you have to treat it like a type 1 action under seeker, even though seeker doesn't consider it an action at all.
Oh, goodness. Why would we do that?
I don't know.
Well, I guess the question is, can that be done?
Yes.
Well, if it's not an action, I'm just saying, okay, so
Yeah.
if you're saying it is, maybe I shouldn't, so,
I can
Hey.
find a section for you, Justin. There's a section in seeker that says that local municipalities can designate their own type 1 actions. And if this is the first time I've ever heard of a local municipality designating something as a type 1 action that wasn't even an action under seeker. But they can certainly do that.
that's what I'm wondering if that's even possible. So if it's not an action, then you can't designate a list for it. But
this
if we want
just,
to go through it,
That's
we can go
certainly,
through it.
I would agree that it doesn't make sense to do that.
Is this a municipal expression of love for the seeker process? Is that,
No, no.
And hate
It's
for
a
the
municipal
planning board.
expression of, never mind.
Okay, so basically what we'd have to do then is, if we're the only agency involved, then we do not need to send out a notice letter, is that correct? Or do we need to send it to county planning?
Correct.
So correct, Evan, we do not need to send a letter to county planning about seeker?
Let me think. I think the 239N is like the 239M, so that they don't have authority to approve, undertake, or fund. So they're not an involved agency.
They're
They may
interested
be
agency.
interested, but they're not involved. So the short answer is no, you don't have to consider them an involved agency for seeker purposes, even though we need to do seeker for something that's not an action.
Okay, so basically, if no construction is involved, the seeker process is pretty simple because nothing is changing. But we need to make some findings to that.
You will likely issue a neg deck.
Do we have to go through that? Okay.
Just a really basic question here. Does anybody know why the Canal Corp owned this before and is now abandoning a part of the, I understand just kind of part of the shoreline. So this opens the possibility of Mr. Michaels having a dock or something? Is that all we're talking about here? Or I guess we don't necessarily need to speculate on use at this point. I'm just kind of curious about how he came to not own 0.05 acres in front of both of those properties.
Well, I believe there's some discussion of this like a year or two ago, and he just decided to buy it from the Canal Corporation, I believe. And so if anyone wants to give them money, I guess maybe they'll take it for something that's not of concern to them. I don't know what went into that, why or what, but I guess the big question is there some future use for this that's planned? Like you mentioned, a dock or something like that. And so so then that would also tie into seeker, as Mindy, I'm sure will remind us, is if this is the first part of some phase thing, we need to consider the larger project. Is that correct, Mindy?
Yep.
So it sounds like questions. So we need from the applicant then is we would need the them to fill out the full environmental assessment form.
Yes.
God.
But no letters go out from me, right? The letters that I sometimes send for the interested
lead
Well,
agents.
that
No,
agriculture-
there's no
agencies?
coordinated review.
Okay,
Oh, no coordinated seeker review, correct.
okay.
And then the agricultural data statement needs to be dealt with.
Right. 239
Um,
in referral.
Needs to be referred to county planning. And we need to do an LWRP review on both of these.
Right.
Yeah, I think a minor point would be from, I'm guessing that Dave would agree, it's a pretty steep section, one of the steepest sections in the village, and erosion might be a concern with what he's doing.
Yeah. And
Other
does
than that-
anybody know, were these lots created? As in there was a prior, if you look at the meeting packet and you look at the shape of the canal line, these properties that are being connected are effectively add-on space. It doesn't really exist anywhere in the village. And Justin and I were talking about this, and he had done some work on it to where there's nothing else that jumps out like this. So
Yeah.
would it have been that he just went to the Canal Corps and said, hey, look, the land mass is a little different than what the the survey says, and could you just sell it to me so that I can have what I thought already to be waterfront?
I think he was doing some of this for setback reasons so that he complies with the village setbacks, because the buildings are, I believe, are too close to the property line.
Which
But I
property
don't know,
line?
I don't really know what he's doing, what he's trying to do. We haven't heard from him.
Right.
Okay. And so then the next question is where in the New York State, like recommendations for villages or anything, do they tell us on what conditions can we accept or deny subdivision where it's lot consolidation?
Mindy's, there she is.
I unmuted myself. So very interesting. Under your village code 178-1.2b, the same rules apply to re-subdivisions as subdivisions. And under 178-9.2, a lot line adjustment, which this is, right? It's a lot line adjustment, is considered a minor subdivision.
Right.
So you need to apply the same criteria to doing this lot line adjustment, this re-subdivision, as you would to a minor site plan approval, minor subdivision approval.
Okay, that's under the application requirements, right? And do we have, I guess, do we have a worksheet like I've gone through with the LWRP that is easy for me to look at as to determine if we should or should not approve a subdivision, in this case, lot quality?
I got a question for you, Mindy. There's like a default approval of these, isn't that correct?
Correct.
The work that I had done before on this suggested that if the lot consolidation doesn't materially alter the zoning, the nature of zoning within the community at large or within the village, or deteriorate from that which stood before, then it's really hard to say that you couldn't consolidate these two lots. So it's not like you're combining two housing lots and you're bringing them together. Rather, you're just granting them a consolidation of what was perceived to be theirs already. That is the land behind them that touches the canal.
Right. I mean, as long as the short answer is, as long as you're not creating a substandard lot, a lot that's too small,
Yeah.
and both lots comply with the zoning code, there's really no basis to deny the application.
And any concern that you may have about what could come next is not a valid concern, because that would be subject to site plan review. It'd be subject to the HPV, right? It'd be subject to LWRP then. It would be like all of those things would apply later if anything different were to occur with those lots.
Yes.
Right.
So-
I mean, there will be ample time. I mean, the issue here, as Justin was pointing out, is that seeker requires you to do an environmental review at the earliest possible time in the decision-making process. So is this too early? Or, I mean, what is the earliest possible time? They're
You have to do
requiring,
it twice.
well, you really shouldn't have to do it twice. But I think an argument can be made that this is a little too early. That while seeker does require it at the earliest possible time, this is just a little too early. Because they're just, doing a lot line adjustment. They're not proposing anything.
I guess what I'm saying is, if we did a seeker now and it's too early,
Right.
but then they later came back with a development idea, right? Then you'd have to do a seeker then too.
Well, and this is why seeker does not consider these things to be actions. And I don't know why the village code considers this to be an action.
Right.
Would we get in trouble if we did a seeker now on just the lot consolidation and then suggested if there were development down the road by anybody that we wanted to do a seeker then too? We're not subjecting them to seeker twice, because they're two different total actions. One's a development, one's subdivision.
That's a very generous way of describing it, yes.
Because I just don't want to sit here.
They're different applications, that's for sure. And
Right.
the pre-subdivision is an action under the village code, but it's not an action under seeker.
What I don't want to do is get in the habit of trying to speculate what they might do with the property if the lot consolidation makes sense. I mean, these are two completely locked pieces of property that now exist as a result of the Canal Corps effectively selling them. And to have them be something other than part of the two parcels that exist before it seems rather odd, right? And given, I don't know, I think we have to go through the right procedures here, and I think we are. I don't want to get in the habit of guessing what somebody's going to propose at some point way down the road.
Well, let's see what they come up with in their full environmental assessment form.
Right.
Yep.
And then we'll take it the next step.
Okay. So to kind of tie together a couple of points from this meeting, it sounds like there might be agreement that we can streamline temporary use permits, and then also we raised the question, Mindy raised the question about why this is qualified as an action under seeker, and maybe we could lump that into the same memo. Type 1 action, yeah. Ask them why they love seeker so much and want this to be a type 1 action.
Well, I believe what they wanted is they wanted coordinated reviews on things that are not a type 2 action, so that we don't have unlisted actions which go through and have each agency can come up with its own set of findings and so on. So
Not the way to do it.
Well, we can ask. It seems like that's a reasonable way to streamline. So let's we can raise it.
So
And I could
then-
draft that up, perhaps, if the board is amenable to that, and have someone else review. Maybe Susan could review the copy before the next meeting, and we can send it over to him.
Who is communicating with either Steve or direct with the applicant then? Will Steve communicate with them in terms of what we need?
Yes, Steve will talk to Mr. Michaels, I believe.
Okay, and who's going to communicate with Steve with regards to what to ask for? Does he know, or can we tell him?
I think someone should tell him.
Okay.
all right.
Yeah,
So Mr. Lightgib, are you going to coordinate with Steve on the first one? Or
Yes.
what do you do it? I guess I can work on coordinating with Steve on Mr. Michael's application if that's
Sounds good.
amenable to everybody. So he needs a full environmental assessment form. He needs the agricultural data statement.
Which here are you talking about, Justin? Are you talking about the Michaels application?
The Michael's application for the subdivision.
Okay,
So he needs the full environmental assessment form, the agricultural data statement, the coastal assessment form.
right.
I haven't, Mr. Gibb, do you still have the county mapping GIS stuff up and can tell if it's within 500 feet of Powers property?
And while Justin is looking at that, Justin, he'll also need 2 separate applications.
Right.
Application.
Policies.
2 applications.
And Linda, he'll need 2 postings, right? Can't do it on the same one?
Right, they're different properties.
2 postings, okay.
And it needs to be referred to county planning.
Under 239, N as in Nancy, not M as in Mary.
Yeah, that's a new one for us.
It's going to take me a
39M existed, N rather. I always hear M. But subdivisions are different. Now, do we have the option of just ignoring this for 2 months and it's automatically approved without doing any paperwork?
I think it's 2 months,
I
60
thought about
days from the date of the close of the public hearing.
Okay.
Do you want to open a public hearing?
No,
No, I think it's incomplete right now.
right.
Ah,
Yeah,
so you can't
Under-
open a public hearing until it's fully applied correctly?
right. So under 178-2.4A2, it's within 62 days following the close of a public hearing.
Justin, I'm the lines that I'm here. Actually, let me share a sec. Okay, application. Okay, so we're talking about this parcel over to this parcel, right?
Oh gosh,
Yep.
it's
And
400 feet plus.
isn't that annoying?
Oh wait, you gotta be kidding
So
me.
it's less than 500.
Well,
I don't know if the other one is. So maybe one application needs it and the other one doesn't. No, they both need it.
Well, okay, well
Thank
those
you.
are easy to get. I mean, the conditions of that agricultural data statement are incredibly easy.
Yeah, it's not hard.
No.
488.
Oh, guys, the other thing that I wanted to call out, I'm just reading this now, is at 178-2.3D1. says that the subdivision application is not complete until all required application materials are submitted and the lead agency has filed a neg deck,
Oh, no. Oh, no.
TND, or notice of complete DEIS.
No, no, no.
That's what it says. 178-2.3D1.
Yikes.
Well, if it was a bigger application, it would buy us time to do the seeker without feeling that we're trapped within a 60-day window to do everything else too, right?
You're not, because
Right.
the application isn't even complete. You can't
Yeah,
even
that's what I'm
open.
saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that statement buys us time by not having the application complete until seeker's done.
Right.
So if it were a bigger application with more complexity, it gives us greater time to do seeker.
Guys, I have to excuse myself for 1 minute. I've got a barking dog that is driving me absolutely nuts. I hope he's not bothering you nuts too, but
No, it's
I
fine.
will be right back. I'm going to mute myself and then let him in.
No worries.
Okay, so then Justin Vietstra, you have everything you need to send to Steve, right?
Yeah, I think I got the list here. We need the full environmental assessment form, agricultural data statement, coastal assessment form, 2 applications, 1 for each parcel. We need the notices for the 2 properties posted in the paper. And we need to refer this to county planning.
I'm wondering about the 30 days, if we're going to be ready for the October meeting now. The 30 days for the county?
Well, we don't need it to hear it. We just need it to vote. So if we don't hear back from county, then we don't hear back from county.
Okay.
Just,
Go ahead.
no, I just, wanted to kind of recall, when we were looking at the zoning code and your brilliant idea about being able to differentiate between big and little. This just seems like a prime example of, the biggest case scenario dictating all of the code,
I agree.
and that's for, one possible project when the rest of the residents are now burdened with, a lot of extra hoops to jump through that, are really not even germane to what they want to do. So maybe at some point we can, take that conversation back up, because this is painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, along those lines too, if somebody could mention to Mr. Michaels that we're asking for these things because of the code, I think that would be great, because otherwise it's going to hit us.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I'm going to leave that all to Steve. I'm not talking to him again.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to leave to Steve. But also a lot of this is just formalities that we got to go through, and it's just a ton of paperwork on our end. Steve can work with the applicant. Filling out the forms we're talking maybe half an hour to fill it out. So if Steve gets it to him. So, but I agree that, we've had a few other times where someone's had to go through the ringer. I remember someone trying to build a garage, having to go through all 4 boards once just to build a garage, and had to go through seeker for that and some other things. So that happens sometimes. If you're correct, Susan, that we just set up for these big things, and it just sometimes complicates the little things. But I'm not sure it's actually that onerous on. I think we can get through this without too much pain on the applicant. We got to go through a little bit of pain in coming up with our findings for all these reviews, but if we have to do it once a year, we do it once a year.
And we're not going to have many subdivisions. At least ones this small, I wouldn't figure.
True.
We've only had one other one in my time on the board, and it was a similar situation. Just a lot line change.
What's more
Right.
curious to me is how these lots got created and how nobody knew about them, or just, it's interesting that it happened.
Mhm.
I do think it's beneficial for the village for them to be consolidated personally. And otherwise they're just empty, strange lots.
I think it depends on what he wants to do. Like, why go to the trouble of, buying this property? I'm very curious about his, what use he has in mind down the road. We'll see. Or not. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that leaves that one in limbo. So we'll get the building inspector on that one. And whenever all that gets resolved and all the applications get in, it'll go on to our schedule. And so hopefully it'll be our October meeting. But I guess that's on the applicant and the building inspector to get and get the county planning referral out.
Yeah.
Anything else on either one of the agenda items?
What about the third agenda item of the LWRP review, or did that not make our agenda?
It's on there under member items, I believe.
So I think we failed to follow up with Mindy on what was going on with that. But so while Linda and Mindy are on here, the trustees agreed to a 2-month extension of time to review this active transportation plan for the LWRP review. We sent some comments to them, so they're considering amendments to the plan. And so right now, they're just discussing their amendments, and when they send us an amended one, or within 60 days from, what was that, early September, like September 6th or something like that?
But the
So I
meeting
think
was
right
last
now
Wednesday.
we're idle on that. We haven't voted on anything yet, and we're waiting to hear a response from the trustees.
Yeah. Now,
That's a good
there's a
one.
couple challenges there. Last Wednesday, I had attended, and Joanne and Susan, I think you were on for a little bit as well, right?
Just 2 seconds, then I got
Yeah.
called. Yeah.
So on Wednesday, the trustees had a special meeting about the ATP and went through both our LWRP review comments as well our general comments. They took less time on the general comments, specifically anytime it was within the town, they effectively said, hey, this is outside of our ability to make adjustments, right? Or it's outside of the LWRP review. Not that they suggested they weren't good decisions, but it was outside of what they perceived as their ability to amend in advance of it going through some approval stage. The other part about that was challenging is while they agreed with many of our findings, they found it more reasonable rather than try to embed many of them in the ATP, but rather, as we had said before, to reference the LWRP, specifically to do with anything other than foot and bike traffic. So boating, for example, boating connectivity, boating, anything to do with the canal, not necessarily, walking and biking. They did reference some things in the ATP that maybe we didn't quite see. I think Renee had quite a few references that I believe they're going to bring to our attention. Not all of them, though, really addressed our points, particularly on the bridges and connections and roadways. A few of them I thought they addressed fairly adeptly. For example, the boulevards. The definition of a boulevard is that it doesn't go on a main road. So the fact that we kind of wanted them to all connect with main roads, the way the definitions of certain things worked, that didn't necessarily apply. But all of these things being said, I think that there's a public record of that call somewhere, or somebody has it, if you wanted to listen to it. Sometimes I feel like I didn't succeed in communicating as well as I could have, but also I didn't want to interfere too much with their ability to get through the material, ponder it, think on it, and craft a proposal back to us. I believe, though, the biggest challenge to be of this whole meeting was found at the very end of it, and that is the village board is well aware that they can't modify this document in advance of going to the public meeting with the town and amend it at the moment before it gets approved. And so the challenge with us is we've been presented an ATP that we may find to be inconsistent, but the village board is going to come back to us with, here's how we feel about that, and here's how we want to change it, and here's what we're going to propose. I mean, they could even be concrete in what they're going to propose, but it wouldn't be part of the ATP LWRP review consistency process. It would only become a part of that document when it sat with the town before them in the total combined voting. So one of the challenges here is while they may hear us on many fronts and they may agree that they're going to amend the document, our ability to pass it with those provisions doesn't exist because that's not what's before us. And they can't amend the document without the town, and the village are not going to go through that process and send it back to us for another review. I think I said that much more clearly than what they probably would do.
Well, so if they aren't going to amend the document, then I don't think we can sign off on it.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think there is a degree of goodwill that, depending on how specific they are in their proposed amendments, that we could direct them to what we had spoke about before, which is how might they, through a provision in the LWRP, choose themselves to effectively put it through, right? Even though we may find it inconsistent.
Well, if they want to adopt it anyway, that's up to them.
That's true, but they did not mention that. So that was not something that they were aware of, or did they reference? It was, I think they felt that in their comments back to us, maybe it would be sufficient to pass the LWRP. So maybe there's some clarification that would allow some of us to feel that it is consistent versus inconsistent. But I do think that they're going to present specific adjustments and amendments that simply aren't part of the document we're reviewing.
Well, I just wanted to
I
say,
guess we'll
first
have
of all,
to see how they respond to us.
I think I wanted to mention, first of all, I listened to the recording. I was only at the first part of the meeting before they started talking about the ATP, and I appreciate Dave being in the meeting, and I thought that he represented a bunch of our points well that otherwise wouldn't have gotten a lot of discussion. I think that I was wondering if there's a way that we could, when they respond to us and say, these are all the points that we agree with and we're going to pass along, can we grant conditional approval to the LWRP consistency review, subject to those being presented as they're written to the town board? Or is that not a possibility?
Well, Mindy previously, go ahead, Mindy.
No, go ahead. You probably remember better than I do. So I was going to look it up just to double check what I said, but I think I remember.
What you said was a conditional approval isn't permissible. And as far as I'm concerned, whatever arrangements they have with the town that mentally is telling them they can't modify it, I don't even understand that. That's kind of on them. If they can submit whatever changes they want, and I don't think the village and town are obligated to adopt the same document.
I also think in the meeting, though, one of the reasons why they're unlikely to go that route, there seemed to be, both in statements from Town Supervisor Smith, as well as comments within the village board, that there was some interest on their part of accelerating the process. Specifically, and again, we've talked about this before, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with the intent, but that there was value in getting it completed more than there was value in getting it perfect. And that's my reflection on how many of them may have commented.
Well, I think they need to start by meeting the minimum standards required for adoption. And that's not making it perfect. That's meeting the minimum standards it needs to be. So, but I guess we'll have to see how they respond. We'll see what they want to do. I'm going to have to sign out. I think we've gotten through everything. Thank you, Dave Marshall, for the update as to what's going on with that. I'm still out of town. I'll be back in a few days. I don't know when their next meetings are. I hadn't seen any email correspondence going around where they're actually sharing their schedule of meetings with us.
I believe that they're putting together the document that they're going to send to us in terms of their comments and feedback. And I think it's going to be very thoughtful, but again, I just don't think it's part of the application, and that's the challenge. So we'll see what they say when they come back.
Okay, well, I'm sure there are some things that they may have a different read on and will be enlightening for us to hear, and we'll just have to see what they have to say. So I'm going to sign off. If you guys have anything further to discuss, go ahead. Otherwise, we could just adjourn the meeting if we're.
We can adjourn as far as I'm concerned.
We have to keep the public hearing open for the LWRP review. So I guess I should just make a motion to keep that open until our next regular meeting on October 19th.
Second.
Aye.
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 All right. If there's no further business, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second. Aye.
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 Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mindy, for your help. And thank you, Mr. Leetgib, for all your work behind the scenes as well and getting some things figured out.
No worries. Thank you all very much and have a good night.
All right.
Hey,
Good
good night.
Everybody.
Bye.
Everybody.